guys are getting all the strength, all the stuff out there. And then from my perspective, you know, recovery is kind of a moot point because it's sleep and nutrition, and let's be honest, from a physiological standpoint. But from a movement standpoint, it's really just about perception. Like, let's knock down all the things that feel restricted and feel tight, right? And then you just move and feel a little bit better, regardless of if you made a true change. And so we use little low-level exercises and mobility stuff just to change your perception, so that you go into your next workout and you feel less restricted. Whether or not that actually changed your structure, who cares, right? You feel better. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to have you guys actually line up on the wall, but you're going to lay on your back, and your feet are going to be on the wall. So in this position, what's nice about it is that your pelvis and your rib cage kind of face each other. Your lower back is relatively flat against the ground, so you're kind of decompressed. And what you can also do is pull your heels down the wall slightly so they're not going to move at all, but your tailbone is just going to lift up. Basically, your back is going to flatten even more, and that can kind of decompress things. Because we just kind of get stuck in this weightlifting posture of always being arched and extended, right? And it's nice to kind of let that go a little bit when we're unloaded. So what I'm going to have you do is breathe in through your nose, and you think about it, just letting the air fall in like water. You're not trying to pull it in, and you're filling from bottom to top. And then you're going to exhale through your mouth like you're blowing up a balloon. And you're going to exhale longer than you think you should. You're going to exhale until all of the air is out. And I'm actually going to come around and pull your ribs down. Everything in weightlifting is, you know, you're inhaled. You're always kind of, you know, the chest is out. You're always inhaling and expanding. And every now and then it's good to get all the air out. If you want to think about ramping down from training and shifting that nervous system over to that rest and digest. So breathe in through your nose here. Good. Exhale all the way. You got a lot of air. Good, and exhale. So, when you breathe in again, you shouldn't have to arch your lower back to take a breath in. And that's kind of the point here. When we talk about breathing and bracing under the barbell, we want that 360 degrees of expansion. And so when you inhale, I want you to feel like you're breathing into your lower back. Breathe in for me, good. Exhale all the way. Keep going, good. And then your abs turn on a little bit on that exhale, and then just put air into that brace. So breathe in through your nose and expand. Good. 360 degrees. Exhale. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. More. You should feel your lower ribs kind of get pulled down. And so that's that neutral position. And then your inhalation, good. You just inhale into that tension. And that's your brace. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Good, good, good. So all the way. One more. Good. Just a little ab shake there, nice. And then breathe into that tension. Nice. Relax. Exhale all the way. One more. Good, and relax. Good. And some of you guys have some type of shoulder mobility issue here. So I'm going to put a weight. Jesse, hold this weight over your head. This is called a pullover. So this is just an idea for you guys to try. So bring your hand a little bit wider. Good. And so you breathe in. Exhale all the way. As you exhale and pull your ribs down, you go over your head. And so it's loaded mobility. So over your head, overhead. Keep exhaling. Good, good, good. Yep. And then breathe in and bring it on back. So really, so we're isolating shoulder movement without having to compensate through the rib cage. And if, again, any shoulder issues that you guys are dealing with there, the weight actually allows you to go a little bit further. We're isolating shoulder motion. Breathe in. And we like to load our mobility strategies because that actually makes some type of change. Do that one more time. So you guys can actually do that with no load and just kind of feel what it's like to put your arms over your head and not have to hyperextend your lower back. So I use a plate, 5 kilos, sometimes even 10 kilos, but practice reaching long with those arms. Lock your elbows out just like you would if you were holding a jerk or a snatch, but you're keeping those ribs down. And that's a good, yeah. And from my perspective here as a PT, I may add some soft tissue or something like that, but you can just focus on reaching actively long through the axis of your arm. And I'll even have people shift closer to the wall so we're in the deeper squat position, but keeping that overhead position. Somebody like Pop, who's got a lot of muscles, good. Push your heel into the wall, but your leg is straight. And then you're going to take the opposite knee and you're going to hug it to your chest. Now, in this position, we're actually going to use leverage from the off leg. So we're going to use the wall as a way to gain leverage. So the straight leg is going to push with the heel, and then it'll just get enough glute to kind of lock the pelvis in place. And then this is the side that we're mobilizing, and it's kind of a self-mobilization. So you just pull your hip to where you feel comfort level. So all of you are going to kind of be a little bit different in regards to the amount of rotation and flexion you have. But the idea here is that we're getting the pelvis to split, as we call it. Because again, really the only thing that requires that in weightlifting is the jerk. And most of you guys are using the same side to jerk. At least 90% of your reps are going to be the same side. So in this position, you can use the same breathing strategy and just get a little bit of mobility through the hips. Get the SI joints to kind of move. It's really good to decompress the lower back after training. So you can use your thigh and your belly to kind of push air down there as a little added benefit. So push your opposite heel into the wall. As you exhale, pull the knee a little bit further away. So you're just trying to create some distance. Get a couple breaths there. Explore whatever range is comfortable for the hip. So it can just kind of fall in its, wherever it's most comfortable. You don't have to jam into any type of pinching. And then switch. Just a couple breaths on each side, a total of 6 to 8 reps. You can take the foot and then get some like external rotation of the hip, more like a pigeon pose. You can go the other way and put the hip into internal rotation. But again, that opposite side is giving you a little leverage. If you guys ever if you get any one-sided SI joint discomfort, or it feels like things are compressed back there, you can go to something like this. Yep, just creating hip separation. Keep leverage with that opposite leg. Lay on your side. We'll go kind of almost like fetal position-esque, so your hips and knees will be bent. And so rotation is another thing, like thoracic spine rotation. You don't really need it as a weightlifter. If you're getting T-spine rotation, you're doing like the helicopter. It's probably something that we're trying to fix. So mobilizing into thoracic spine rotation is not necessarily a necessity, but if you generally are somebody that gets some tightness in your upper back or lower back, it's good to rotate, let gravity do its thing every now and then. So we'll just kind of open up like a book. Essentially, Colin's going to rotate here and open up and keep his hips square, and really this arm is just kind of along for the ride. So he's exhaling and letting the exhale drive the range. And then he can inhale into that position, expand, exhale a little further, and rotate. But again, you're just kind of letting your body sink into the movement, not trying to force any range. Right there, Kelly?
Yeah.
And then you reach long, exhale.
Oops. Don't do it next to guys.
Yeah.
You're a dude, don't do it next to a dude.
You're just trying to get up from these little movements and feel like you're a little bit more tied together. Feel like you've ramped down a little bit. All this stuff, not necessarily what you would be doing before training, at least the relaxation part of it. If you relax enough, you may even get a couple pops out of your upper back. Nice, that's $50 right there. Yeah, exhale, 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 good. You can hug your knees up to your chest a little bit, and so the more that your hips are flexed, the more that we're isolating movement through the upper back. We're not necessarily trying to drive a bunch of rotation through your lower back. Exhale, 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 exhale. Your body has most people have a lot more mobility than they think, and especially you guys have very, very specific mobility. And when things, quote unquote, feel tight, it's probably not because they're actually stuck.
What if we feel tighter on one side than the other?
I would spend more time there, but I would just I would try to expand. Yeah, let the breath kind of dictate the range. Good. Come up to all fours. And for the hips, we call the quadruped position essentially it's a squat. If we're on all fours. And so what we can do we can manipulate the type of rotation in our hips and get a stretch just from leveraging our body weight. And so if we're going wide with our knees, we're going narrow with our feet, that would be more of an external hip rotation like a pigeon pose. Then we can just kind of sink into that position. Now we can go from hands or we can go down to the forearms, which would be a lot more specific to the angle of a squat with that forward torso angle. So essentially, breathe in through your nose. Exhale with a little force and push yourself into that position. And so we call this just quadruped rocking or quadruped squatting, but we're manipulating a couple things, knee and foot width as I mentioned, but also pelvic tilt. So if you're one of those lifters that gets a bit of a pinch in one side of the hips or both, what you can do is manipulate pelvic tilt. You can actually roll backwards. Okay? It's unloaded, so it's completely safe. If you flex a little bit, if you posteriorly tilt the pelvis, that's going to give you a little bit of space in the hips. It'll allow you to sit back, and then you can work to regain your arch once you're down there. And you'll find that you can actually kind of go past that pinching point if that's something that you deal with. It's almost like working the squat position from the bottom up instead of just trying to jam from the top down. And then you can manipulate foot and knee width in different ways. You can go feet wider, which would put your hips into internal rotation, and it would likely be more uncomfortable for a lot of people, especially guys.
How wide should our knee?
There's no, it's whatever.
Like just where we feel a stretch.
Yeah, exactly. You guys, with the more mobility you have, the wider you would have to be. But again, you're kind of towing the line here between comfort and maybe moderate stretch, but you shouldn't be feeling any type of pinch in the hips. If you do, just try to manipulate position. You got somebody who's trying to, regain some tolerance to a squat position, or you coming back off an injury or something like that, or coaching one of your athletes into learning that triple flexion pattern of the hips, knees, and ankles is a nice way to do it.
What is that?
That's my elbow.
You just break. I can't do it.
Pretty
Your
much.
elbows.
Is that supposed to happen?
Yeah. It's all part of the plan.
You got a double joint.
Oh, that's hello.
I didn't want to.
And then once you're down there, you find a position that's maybe, okay, I feel a little stretch in the hips, but it feels like a good stretch and something I can sink into. You stay there for a couple breaths, you roll your pelvis back and forth, so that would be like posterior to anterior tilts. You can push your knees into the floor to get some muscular activity at the bottom. And you can use higher threshold breaths, like you're exaggerating a brace, like you would be holding position with the barbell. So we'll rock back. Now, from here, just rock back to a comfortable range. And we'll go hand on ground, elbow on thigh, so something like this. The other hand is going to be on the back of the head, and you're just going to drive rotation here. We're looking to put you into planes of motion that you don't necessarily go into because your body is sometimes it desires a different type of movement. Everything is straight plane and weightlifting.
Do you exhale as you're coming?
Yeah, exhale as you go. When you feel your barrier, maybe hang there and inhale and try to expand. Exhale and go a little further. You can put your forearm all the way to the floor to increase a little rotation or range of motion there. This is called quadruped and thoracic spine rotation.
What do we call it?
You would call it all fours rotation.
All fours rotation.
Yeah. Upper back. All fours, upper back rotation. Good. Come up on half kneeling, or on one knee, we'll call that half kneeling, and use a pad if you need to. The way that we cue this thing up is less about what you'll see often is just kind of like exaggerating this position where you get that pinpoint sensation in the front of your joint capsule. And what we'd rather have is some type of global stretch with a little bit of residual abdominal tension to drive that position. So what you're going to do is use that front leg as your leverage point. You're actually going to take your hands and push into that front knee. So my back leg is actually straight underneath. I don't have to exaggerate this hyperextension of my knees, and I can just tuck my tailbone slightly to get a little bit of a stretch. So I push straight down in my front knee, I tuck my tailbone slightly, and for me, I don't know about you guys, but I already get a little bit of a feeling there. And from that position, I can drive into the knee, exhale, squeeze that back hip just slightly, and then you're driving hip extension, but it's a much more active way to do so.
If we don't feel it, do we just go a little bit further?
Maybe,
into it?
you also just may not even need to do this. You know what I mean? Like maybe you have a range of motion. Yeah, I mean you can play around, go further for sure, but the difference is going to be instead of just hanging
Yeah.
in this passage,
You
like
actually squeeze.
you're actually exactly right. Yeah, you're driving that active hip extension, so you should feel some type of global stretch across your quad as opposed to that pinpoint feeling. Right, and that's, if we can add, anytime we can add tension or load to a stretch, it becomes more effective, one, because your tissues respond to load, and two, it just becomes more specific to training. And then what we'll do often as well, and you guys don't, if you don't have an implement to do this here, you can just kind of think about it on your own, is elevating your front foot. So we often will think about elevating the back foot for sure, but this we like a lot because it mimics a deep squat position. So I can actually push into the wall, I can drive into that front foot again, but I'm getting mobility on the opposite leg into hip flexion. And this also helps to kind of lock in that lower back position. So we'll do a ton of stuff in front foot elevated. We'll do overhead pressing, we'll do a front foot elevated split squat to teach that position. Go ahead and switch if you haven't. But that's another option, right? Front foot elevated half kneeling. I think the point is to just drive a little bit of activity through your abs and through your butt, and then all that other stuff's gonna take.
So we're flexing that
slightly.
extend foot right
Yeah, exactly.
rather than just doing this crap right
And just hanging. Yeah, I mean, it's not that that's bad.
Yeah.
But if we can get range of motion and also get some active control, that's probably good. A little bit better. Anything that you do as far as all this little mobility, correctivity type stuff, you should get up and just kind of feel more tied together. You should perceive that you feel looser, whether or not you actually broke up any tissue or not. You can add tension to any movement and actually help ramp you up. So that hip flexor, maybe you're going through some of your squats and you're like, I feel a little tight. I'm going to drive some hip flexor stretch, but I'm going to do it forcefully, like my breathing strategy, like I was under the bar. And that'll help ramp you up, but you're not going to breathe, right before training. It's just probably not the best shift at that point. With stuff like foam rolling and lacrosse balls and all that stuff, just understand that it's all short-term, nervous system. You're just playing with your perception. That's all. And so don't spend 20 minutes on a foam roller thinking you're breaking up tissue, because you're not, first of all. And second of all, you probably lost the benefits of the foam roller for the first 10 minutes, right? Because it's short-term. So if you're going to use that stuff, use it in between your lighter warm-up sets. Or 2 to 5 minutes of foam rolling in the beginning is just fine. But use the barbell, use your movement as the guide to what you need to address that day. Because some days you feel good and some days you just feel tighter, right? And so if you're going through your squats, you're like, today, I just feel a little janky in my hip. Yeah, lacrosse ball right there for 20 seconds. Foam roll your glutes for 20 or 30 seconds. But once you feel that release, it did its job. No need to spend any more time on it.
I think a lot of girls have it, or people that are
Questions?
that too. But people that are hypermobile, people that just fall under the bar, like I do that a lot. Like
Just,
when I clean.
yeah.
And sometimes it's like I can catch it, but I can't get back out of it because as soon as I caught it at the bottom, I let go of all the tension.
You lose all tension.
Yep.
Coaches can prescribe things like pause squats and tempo squats, but that's why we like the counterbalance squat so much is to control that bottom position. So just squat straight down, but I want you to, perfect. Now from that, in this position, breathe into that brace, don't lose it. Now on this next exhale, I want you to lower this down to the floor, exhale, exhale, exhale. Good. Yeah, so you're gonna let go, breathe in, exhale really, really hard. Exhale, 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 then come up maybe 3 inches, hold, and breathe into that brace. Exhale really, really hard. Come up. And so you can practice, and then relax. So the breathing strategy is the same regardless of if you have 200 kilos on your back or you've got a 8 kilo kettlebell. Now you exhale to set position. You've seen that obviously we have powerlifting here as well, and the best powerlifters in the world. Then they grab the bar. Maybe they don't even know they're doing it, but they're setting position with that exhalation. And then that inhalation is what reinforces your position. And so if you want to learn how to get tension, just manipulate your breathing, because your abs and your breathing are neurally locked. You can't have that type of breathing strategy and not be using your abs.
Yeah.
And then that's pelvic floor, that's diaphragm, and that's all kind of working together. Now, how does that translate to a clean? Well, now, yeah, you're not gonna just all of a sudden have tension in the clean. But that's when you take your warm-up sets. You don't take those for granted. You know, you do things like your no feet, like coach. You know, your no feet clean. Your lighter front squats. Don't take those for granted. Use tempo because your lighter sets are light. Typically, it's like just it's a stepping stone to get to your working sets. But use your lighter sets as tempo work for exactly that. Because it's a skill. It's not like you're not strong enough to hold the tension. It's just a habit for you to lose it and to just dive on. Because you feel like you don't have the strength in that range. But if you practice with lighter loads and create that tension all the way down, then you will. You know, your body will know that you have that. But that's the key of the breathing strategy. Now, I would never have to say that to any of you guys again, because that's it. I mean, it's not rocket science. Create set position, create tension, and then breathe into that tension, and then brace, and that's it. You know, the threshold is the amount of tension that you create, and that's just based on the activity. For a snatch, it's going to be a lot less than a back squat, right? Because you want to be looser.
I have an issue because of injuries in the past. I feel balanced pushing off of just my right leg harder than my left.
On the pull?
On the pull.
Or the squat?
On squatting. If I'm using tempo on squatting, it's easier to control it. But when I'm trying to go for a max effort snatch or clean, it can definitely crop up. And
You know,
carries over to all the other things.
yeah, and this goes like to coach, because I'm not writing a program or anything like that, but I think at some point in the lifters, in some type of off season, they have to have some more unilateral loading, because it's at this point it becomes, hey David, just don't, just shift over more, use your other leg, and it's just not that easy.
Because the perception is not there.
Exactly, and with heavy weight, your body's going to go where it feels strong. If it feels stronger over here, then it's going to do that, and really the only way to correct that is unilateral loading. There are some things that you can at least try to get the perception of, like, hey, I got another leg there that can help to kind of carry over. One of them is a front foot elevated split squat. So the way that so in that exact situation, I would load it and sit straight down, and I'm telling the lifter, I just want you to feel this leg. This is the leg that you're not used to pushing from. Well, now you got no choice, right? And push. You don't have to lock out at the top. I don't really care about that. Push. You do 5 at that tempo, 3 to 5 sets in between your squatting warm up, like your lighter working sets. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I felt what it was like to push with that leg. I'm a little bit more, my body's just naturally a little bit more confident.
So you're just saying you're using that almost as like a light warm up for more proprioceptive purposes
Exactly
rather
right.
than actual like training and conditioning. Or
Totally.
something.
It goes both ways, because maybe on the back end we are doing some more strengthening, like a rear foot elevated split squat or something super heavy, but you still got to, at that point now I've got to account for the volume of that to recover from, whereas this I don't. It's more of a teaching tool. If you want to actually fix it, that's got to be heavier unilateral loading, but if you want to at least eke out everything that you got and start chipping away, it's something like that. You can do the same thing with a pull. If we're here and I hinge forward, I feel that tension, and I hold on this side, but nothing changes. So that's the idea. Now, personally, when I do that on my left side, I have a real hard time lifting up this leg. It's like I don't want to do it. Right? And when I do, I start to open up. There's all sorts of weird things going on. If you watch my pull, it's over here. Right? It's like this guy's not even there. And we see that a lot, but that's an exercise, and I would load that as well. So, 10, 15 kilo plate, and I'm here, and I'm just holding, and maybe I'm doing some small reps up and down. It's not, it's not this jazz, because I think this is great for just gaining volume and hypertrophy, but if we're really trying to correct a movement pattern, it's got to be super specific to the position. So I want you guys to feel that, actually. Go ahead and stand up in here. So essentially what you're going to do, get into your pulling stance, whatever that is for you. Slight bend in the knees. And then we'll just do an RDL to, like, if you were going to pull from the knee or something like that. Just enough to where you feel some tension, like normal hamstring tension. From that position, It's a straight lateral shift. Nothing changes except my center of mass is now shifting straight over that down leg. And when I feel centered, I'm going to pick that opposite leg up an inch off the floor, just enough for it to leave the ground. And I'm going to hold. And what you should feel that down leg glute fire up pretty good.
Yeah.
Don't let the pelvis open up to the opposite side. Keep it square. This is where we talk about, quote unquote, owning that stance leg. And then switch sides. And you're just gauging symmetry, essentially. And most people will have a difference. What's significant? Well, you've got to think about, if it correlates to something in your training. If you feel even, everything's clicking, and yeah, maybe I feel like one side's off, it's probably not a big deal. But if you've got something like what you described, Dave, and then you've got a discrepancy with something like this, I would do the same thing that with the front foot elbow, maybe spend a little bit more time right before. Now this one will light you up. Like I've made myself sore from just demonstrating that this second time. I wake up, I'm like, holy shit, what did I do? One set of single leg holds.
Unloaded.
No way, yeah. All 40 kilos of me. And so something like that, I'm holding for breaths. Really, it's just a mind-body thing. All right, drive through that leg, because that's what I'm not doing. Drive through that leg. One leg, this feels so natural for me to be over here. And then this is so foreign. It's like I'm in a different land. But now we're pulling with both legs. Those things become masked. It's much harder to perceive that, but it's still there. And so that's when you get things. Now we're talking at maximal loads, they start to rear up a little bit. You start adding in some single extremity work to supplement all of the symmetrical work that you're doing in there. Because the only asymmetrical thing you do is the jerk, and you only do it on one side. That's not me saying that you should practice, splitting from the opposite end, but even single leg or single arm pressing, slow tempo with a super light kettlebell. If you're having shoulder issues, it doesn't have to be heavy, and this is not going to add to your volume because a bottoms up position is self-limiting. You can only go so heavy, but you're at least sensing one side versus the other. Whereas a barbell just doesn't allow you to do that. It's just kind of like whatever your body's working with that's what it's going to work with.
What is the optimal back position? I know you're not supposed to obviously flatten it out, but I see a lot of girls really overextend even on jerks and they're still really strong.
Yeah.
Is there like...
I think optimal is a range. Mm-hmm. I think to say that this is the right spinal position is false, because like you said, oh, I see. Yeah. And then I see somebody with a butt wink who's moving massive load is not injured at all. We actually know that a butt wink is unavoidable at the bottom of a squat to some extent. Like they've looked at it in a squat, a good morning, a deadlift. You can't not butt wink a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where we get out of like what's perfect and what's not. Now, like from a joint loading, the way that I look at a butt wink is like, give me a squat, Vanessa. You see them roll back a little bit. It's like you see a butt wink, but if you actually then go and look at their spinal position, they're still pretty flat. That's kind of my okay. If they roll into what's obviously, and you can't, you're still flat. But what's like obviously rounding, that's when I deem it probably, we're not going to be able to at least absorb enough load through there from a force vector standpoint. But I do think hyperextension, because you run out of, if you're like this, if you're tilted, you run out of room much quicker in the front of the hip. You're already flexed, and so you're going to run out of slack much sooner, and now your pelvis has nowhere to go but back. So yeah, I see that a lot. From overhead standpoint, we cue out of hyperextension just because there's nothing supporting, there's nothing stacking. I can lift a lot more weight if I'm centered under the weight. I can push from the ground. So it's not that they can't do it because they're really, really good, but could it be better? Could they possibly support more load if they were under the weight? Probably. It's a tough question. Yeah. It's a real tough question. Yeah. I think neutral, we start neutral. That's why these drills, I don't cue, you should be here. I just cue a position and a movement, like I cue an exhale and then an inhale, and then that usually puts them right where they need to be.
So we were laying on the floor and you're like breathe into your lower back into the floor, not necessarily meaning that you're like...
Flat, yeah, exactly. It's more of just being, as opposed to being here, you're...
It's just neutral but not...
Yeah, you're not like that. But also understand that these drills are a little bit different than
Yeah,
load,
yeah, for sure.
load supporting.
Yeah.
But like the way that we were cueing the squat, that putter, you know, that just kind of puts you in that neutral position. You're still gonna extend when you need to,
Yeah.
but not just go as your default. Because it puts the brakes on.
So say for instance, like an jerk recovery exercise or something like teaching you to really like reach up and
Well, I think those exercises in of itself can do that. But that's where I like something like a unilateral load, because I can lock here. I can actually take out all compensations, push here, and now I have no choice but to learn how to reach, because I can't hyperextend, because this is actually keeping me in place. I lock in my abs with my opposite hand, and even though the load is light, it's still really hard for me to do that and try to keep everything neutral. But I'm feeling it. Like, the whole point is just to feel it. Because if I can do it here, then I'm trying to recreate that exact thing under the bar. And that's why I would do these things like in between your lighter warm-up sets or right before the exercise. So I do the drill, I feel more mobile, and then I'm under the bar trying to recreate the exact position. So that would be one example. But keeping in mind, like thinking about reaching long at the same time that you exhale, you can't, if you exhale and pull your ribs down, you can't hyperextend and reach at the same time. So you're actually reaching and extending at the same time that your ribs are being pulled down. Does that make sense? It's just a cue. Reach, get tall at the same time that you are pulling the ribs down. So it's like this is happening. And then the inhale is just, so you're not like deflating yourself under heavy load, but to start the position. It's conscious when you're doing those drills, but that's what those drills are for, is, to work on those positions.